Hello friends, my name is TheRealEmile and welcome back to some more Forza Top Gear laps. Now yesterday we had some C-Class cars go around the track and this is sort of a part 2 to that, because in this part we've got some more interesting C-Class cars. So yeah, let's just get right into the laps. The first car today was a BMW 1M. Yeah, we had an M1 yesterday, this is a 1M. It's weird. Anyway, this car has 335 horsepower and weighs 3,296 pounds. Now, the 1M, I'm not a huge fan of this car. I like the BMW 1 Series. I didn't when it first came out, but I do quite like it nowadays. But this 1M, I'm not a huge fan of. I don't particularly think it looks very nice, and I don't know why you just wouldn't have a BMW M3 over it. Or the M135i hatchback, which is a much better looking car. But anyways, the 1M surprised me. Now, I expected this car to be very, very slidey. Sort of, this car when it was first built, I believe it's built basically with a bunch of mismatch of parts. So it's got like an old M3 engine, but it's got a new 3 Series axle and so on and so forth. And it was very mismatched of parts, and apparently it was a very good handling car. And in Forza, it is actually a pretty good handling car. Usually when the critics say something about how good a car is, in Forza, it will be absolutely atrocious. 458, for example. But the 1M wasn't particularly bad. This car does go sideways, and you know, you don't really have to do much to convince it to go sideways. But it is perfectly drivable, actually. I enjoyed my time with the 1M. I'm still not a huge fan of it, but yeah, around the track it was pretty good. Next up, we have a Dodge Challenger SRT 8392. This car has 469 horsepower and weighs 4,160 pounds. Now, I was kind of curious on this one, because we had a Ford Shelby GT500 go around here in the very first episode, actually, and that was a pretty damn good handling car, so I was wanting to see how this would do. This handles like a muscle car. It's very, very slidey, this car. You really have to try to get a decent lap time out of this. It's fun. Don't get me wrong, you know, this thing will slide absolutely everywhere. It does not take much encouragement at all. In fact, if you throw it into a corner 9 times out of 10, it will just slide. So I'm actually quite lucky that I managed to get this lap together. Yeah, strange thing is, it doesn't feel that weighty. Because the rear end's out so much, it feels quite active on the rear end. It does feel quite weighty. Oh, it doesn't feel weighty, actually. With those sort of heavyweight cars, GT500, that does feel heavy, and the DBS actually. Those cars feel heavy, but the rear end stays planted because those cars are heavy and it's very predictable, and you can sort of tell when it's going and you can easily rein it in. This is a little bit different. It's interesting. I don't particularly like this car for racing per se. This wouldn't be my C-Class car of choice. But it's pretty decent. It's also the highest C-Class car here today, PI rating. Anyway, next we have a Honda S2000 CR. This has 237 horsepower and weighs 2,813 pounds. This is just a perfect car to drive. This thing is superb. I do get it slightly sideways in this first corner, but ignore that because this car is beautiful to drive. It's planted. It's just so stuck to the road. It's fantastic. But it's not fast. And that's the big issue with this car. The reason you see me get it sideways during this lap and stuff is because I am pushing this car so ridiculously hard, and you need to. It's, like I said, it's superb to drive, but it just doesn't have the speed of anything else here. I'm not quite sure where it is that is losing its speed either. It might be straight line, because through the corners it's pretty good, but yeah, I just needed to push this car as hard as I can. Through the follow through, I was pretty much flat out, hence why I knocked a cone over. I will say this for the car as well. This is a bit of a weird sort of praise to have, but just go with it. This car has the most fantastic dashboard in the world. It's a digital display, it's easy to use, it's got a rev counter which is huge, and it's got a speedometer underneath that. This car's got the perfect interior view, but it's just not quick. Sorry. Next up we have a car many of you have probably wanted to see go around here. This is a Toyota Supra RZ. This has 320 horsepower and weighs 3,329 pounds. As far as all the Supras go, this is my favourite. This is a 98 model, I believe. And yeah, this car was very nice to drive. Usually with these sort of Japanese import cars, because they're so associated with drifting and so on and so forth, I expect these cars to be very, very slidey, but no, the Supra is planted. It's nice to drive, actually, the Supra. I did enjoy my time with it. Yeah, it's just nice to drive. That's the best way I can describe this car. It doesn't look particularly bad either. It looks a bit odd from some angles, the Supra, but yeah, a very, very good car. Actually, the Supra, believe it or not. As far as speed and stuff goes, it was about average. 320 horsepower for C-Class is about average for this class. And it handles it all pretty well. I assume that's got something to do with the fact that this car isn't exactly the lightest. It's about what you'd expect for sports cars. If you sort of look at similarly aged Japanese sports cars, it weighs about the same. But yeah, this car is very, very nice to drive. I do actually recommend taking this out for circuit race. Take your drift tune off it, goddammit. Next up we have a Nissan Skyline R33, 320 horsepower and 3,393 pounds. It's about the same statistics as the Supra, really. So we've had the R34 go around here before. It was actually in the first ever episode. The R34 went round and it set a pretty good time. And that car was nice but a bit heavy. This car was nice, however, it had a similar problem to the Subaru Impreza that we had yesterday. Basically, getting this thing off the line is just hard. It is ridiculously hard to get this thing off the line. My way I found of doing it is actually to stick it at about 5,000 revs and keep it there until you launch off. Because if you launch it at full throttle, it will just seem like it stalls and go straight back to 2,000 revs. So as if you leave it at 5,000, it will probably dip down to 3,000 and then go. But yeah, the R33 was pretty good. The big issue this car has is the gearbox. The gearbox in this car is atrocious. I don't think I actually got it out third during this entire lap. First, second, third, they're the only gears I used. I don't know why the R33 has such a horribly broken gearbox, but it does. Yeah, that kind of affected this guy. If it didn't have a horribly broken gearbox, this thing could be a bit faster than it was. But it didn't do too bad. And the R33 was a pretty decent car to drive. Oh god. Now we're at the Lancia Delta S4. 247 horsepower, 2,646 pounds of weight. We've had one Group E rally car here before. It was a Ford RS200 and 2000, sorry. And it did pretty well. 200 even. I always, for some reason, I want to call it 2000 even though it's 200. But anyway, we've had one Group B rally car around here before. And it was pretty good. So I wanted to see what the Delta S4 could do. And this car is very, very quick. This thing, I think it hit 60 in about 3.5 seconds, which is what the sort of supercars were doing. The 360 Challenge to Dali was struggling to do that. But the big issue with this car is suspension. Now, we've seen this with a couple of cars that have gone around here before. They have sort of wallowy suspensions, which can make them quite hard to drive. The S4 is extremely difficult to drive. There's many outtakes, which you won't see, because I don't want to embarrass myself, of me basically just spinning this car over there. Yeah, that was two wheels. It did almost roll over the S4. In fact, it did roll over. I'll tell you when. But it did actually roll over on one of my practice laps with it. Yeah, this car just bounces and wobbles everywhere. It's ludicrous. Yeah, get this. I rolled it through this corner. I basically went a bit too wide, went onto the grass and slid it over, and that was sort of that. Yeah, the S4 wasn't fun. And now possibly the strangest car ever on our track other than the Hummer, the Beetle, and the GMC Vandura. This is a BMW X5M. This thing has 547 horsepower and weighs 5,368 pounds. It's heavy. I think it's like 1,000 pounds lighter than a Rolls-Royce Wraith, but yeah, still a heavy car this. Now, the X5M, this was an interesting one. It actually surprised me. You'd probably expect the thing to be wrong with this car is the handling. You'd probably expect it to be atrocious because it's a big SUV. You'd probably expect the suspension to be wobbling all over and so on. But no, the driving position to all this also felt fairly sensible. It felt just like I'm driving a sporty BMW. No, the big issue with this vehicle was the brakes. The brakes on this thing are atrocious. To give you an idea on that, towards the hammerhead, you usually have to brake at the 50-meter board or just before that, so about 75 meters into the corners where I usually brake for these C-Class cars. With this, I had to brake all the way back at the white line, which is where your supercars are braking from. Yeah, the X5M is pretty quick. You know, it has the engine from BMW M5, for Christ's sakes. It's really big, but there's also some understeer as well, but I was expecting that. It's a big off-road car, you know, it's not a track racing vehicle, but it did remarkably well. Anyway, on to the lap times, and the fastest car today was a Dodge Challenger SRT 8392 with a 123.902. That's pretty quick. It's still about a second off what the C4 Corvette did yesterday, and they're both the same PI, so that's a bit interesting. Going down, BMW 1M gets a 124.929, which is faster than the Auto Union D, which is pretty good, and a Subaru Impreza. Toyota Supra 125.400. That's pretty quick. I wasn't expecting the Supra to be that quick, but then again, I wasn't expecting many of those cars to be that quick. In case you're wondering, the Challenger was actually getting about 126s, and then on that final lap, the Challenger just sort of managed to tweak it out. So as much as it says, oh yeah, it's faster than a TTRS and a 370Z, go with those cars over the Challenger if you want to go racing. But if you want a bit of fun, go with the Challenger. It's brilliant for that. That's what the Challenger's sort of built for, fun. The other cars are a bit more track orientated. Anyway, as we go down the board, the Lancia Delta S4 goes into 50th with a 126.077, which is pretty good. I mean, that's faster than an R34 Skyline and even a Lancia Evo 10, but yeah, that car just not fun, scary. Nissan Skyline R33 goes into 52 with a 126.575. Can't speak. Yeah, the R34 is apparently 0.04 of a second faster. Yeah, well done, Nissan. Well done. Anyway, BMW X5, 126.517. That's very, very quick. That's quicker than a Mazda RX-7, which is good. And the Honda S2000, quicker than a Scirocco R, but 127.392. Sorry, that car just wasn't very fast. I'm sorry, S2000 fans. I really tried with that car. Anyway, onto the real times, and it surprised me because not many of these cars have actually been around the real Top Gear track, or they have, but it's different versions and models and stuff. So anyway, Nissan 370Z, real time 127.5, game time 124.3, 1M 125.0 in real life, 124.9 in game, which is about similar. X5M 128.2, but that was in the wet, and game time was a 126.5. So nothing really beat me this week, which is good. I get to keep my pride, which is good, because in the past few episodes it hasn't been looking too well. And if you're wondering, yeah, I combined both from the last episode and this episode to sort of put on that leaderboard. Anyway, I want to thank you all very much for watching. Next time, I think we're going to be doing British cars. And there'll also be an individual episode up within the week. Vote for the straw poll if you haven't already. And yeah, other than that, I want to thank you all very much for watching. My name's been TheRealEmile, and until next time, farewell.